This is Learning to Dad
I'm the cool dad. That's my thing.
with Tyler Ross.
What I do have are a very particular set of skills.
I'm gonna have fun, and you're gonna have fun.
Roy Dekel, thank you for coming to the podcast today. I appreciate you taking the time. We've got a perfect introduction for what you've been doing for the last 5 minutes with getting started today.
Well, thank you for having me. You wanted to share the last 5 minutes of my life?
Yeah, but it fits so perfectly for talking about business and family and being a parent and all.
Well, and fun fact for some, not fun fact for me. 48 hours ago, I just basically borderline broke my ankle on a quick vacation, and basically I'm limping, walking on one foot. And funny thing is, it's the last week of school for my daughter, which is the youngest. And I don't know why I decided today that she'll come to the office because she loves the office so much. And we were dropped off. So we were dropped off right before your interview, and I'm limping, going with crutches and one leg, jumping my way to the 10th floor to the office, and with my daughter and setting her up. And of course, she has a specific show she wants to watch, which is not the show that I have on her iPad. And long story short, it's call time, right? I need to meet you. And she said, "Daddy, I need to go."
We all know what that means.
I have to turn around with one leg in the crutches and the daughter, and take her to the bathroom, and come back and do it all together. And needless to say, that was fun.
And that is so par for the course, trying to balance life and time schedules and work and kids. Like it's just a perfect little anecdote for our start. But let's get into it professionally a little bit first. Like if you give us a quick briefing. I mean, the little I know about you is that you're involved in multiple companies. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So I've been I like this phrase, serial entrepreneur, for the last 20 plus years. And I guess I figured I wanted to do that when I was very young, growing up in Israel, growing up in the middle of nowhere north of Israel. Through the evolution of life, I went through military service, still training, officers academy, et cetera, immigrated to the United States, and then realized that I love business, I love business development, I love entrepreneurship. I love solving problems through products. So ultimately, in the last, I'll just fast forward to this chapter, my co-founder and I, a dear friend of mine named Rudy Dorner, and my wife as well, kind of co-founded multiple companies. And the super hyper focus around our life is really solving the small business owner problem through technology. So we say make business easier for solopreneurs, for entrepreneurs. Really, enterprise is super important, but it's really a last thought for us. So everything that we build solves problems, and primarily our focus started and originated in the world of real estate. So it's basically solving problems in the world of real estate for every solopreneur, whether it's a real estate agent, a broker, a real estate investor, title officer, and so on. And that's really what our businesses have been doing so far.
Well, that's just what I am. So I'd love to know what problem it is that you're addressing for brokers, agents.
So it's Set Schedule, which is the company that Udi and I and Jen actually had founded years and years ago, going back 10 years ago. We've kind of like realized through actually trial and error, we realized that there's a huge industry of real estate professionals that struggles real bad. And the struggle starts from the first moment an individual gets a license, whether it's a mortgage, a loan officer license, or it's a real estate agent license. And really our primary focus was real estate agent and real estate brokers, but we've grown to solve everyone's problems, for lack of a better term, in the space. And the challenge was really that a lot of people got into the space of real estate with no network, no experience in business, no business development abilities or proper training. And at the end of the day, they were solopreneurs by any sense of the word. I mean, they were lone wolves, and their brokers charged them for every single thing that they needed to do, including a desk and getting a copy machine. But really, there's no universe around them to build their center of influence, to build their business. So we took set schedule and basically became the largest social community of real estate professionals, basically the largest real estate professional community in the U.S. And this app provides a lot of solutions from, I like to call it better than LinkedIn version for the real estate industry. It solves a lot of problems to the real estate industry, starting from networking and continuing with lead generation, and all the way to office management, nurturing, and AI automations around consumer cadences. So the real estate agent, the broker, the mortgage broker is basically able to maintain conversations with their prospects. So our customers, right? And do it efficiently in a way that they can relatively easily grow their book of business and ease their life by using set schedule.
Yes, so you've got a couple of partners. You say you grew up in Israel. You had military service. It doesn't sound like you were like highly educated on how to do programming or development or anything like that. Maybe that's the case. Please correct me. But like, what was your role in getting this all started?
That's an amazing question, Tyler. Thank you for that. and it's a great assumption that is actually spot on. I'm a complete ignorant when it comes to coding. I have zero sense around anything that has to do with our code base, whether it's .NET, whether it's PHP, whether it's whatever. I can throw all these languages, but or name drop them. But really, that's the extent of what I understand. But I've learned one thing on the onset, that it's not, some of it is the corny, cheesy of there's no I in a team. Mm-hmm. The team is the key. There's no substitution to a team. And finding a team, which essentially that's what Subschedule does for the real estate professional universe in the US. So ultimately, you need to really focus on bringing people that complement you. And that was a life lesson that I've learned so many times. Actually, my first nightmare in my life were around picking the wrong team and picking the wrong partners. So ultimately, finding people that complement you, not compete with you, is key. And that's what I was fortunate enough to be able to do with Set Schedule and other businesses that we've been built in the past.
Have you ever had a bad team?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Having a bad team is part of the journey and the process of having a good team. And that goes from the microbial step of hiring a level 1 employee to having a good partner. And like I said a couple of minutes ago, really when it comes to partner, it's like in life and marriage, right? And being a dad, being a married dad, and having 3 kids. I mean, it's something that I've learned and cherished. You want a complementary partner, not a competing partner. And that's super critical for your personal growth and your corporate growth. So the same extends, obviously, like I said, in business. So my co-founder and I don't think, the match that we have, I don't think would ever be able to replicate the kind of relationship that I have with my co-founder. But ultimately, yes, I went through bad partnerships and forced partnerships. It's kind of like a scenario of like, oh, we need to do something. We have to do something to do it, even though I know it's probably not the right fit. And also, as I progressed in career, I became, an investor and got involved with a lot of businesses and made executive decisions in terms of recruiting and leadership. And I saw this kind of like this magnets that are wrong for each other. So, partnerships are very important to be complementary. And when it comes to obviously building a team, you go through the process of picking a lot of people. And it's almost like, when you raise kids, right? I mean, obviously your kids are your kids. They didn't have a choice. You made a choice to have the kids, so they're yours forever. And that's the key permanent item in your life, in our lives. But when it comes to team members at work, you select them, but in many instances, there's a certain performance indicators and items you want to identify when you pick your team. Otherwise, you're going to have a very quick churn, very quick disappointment, and your team's going to fall apart. So, we can dive into this. I'm not here, but yes, I had the experience of having that too.
Yeah, one of the things, like the mantra in my head when I'm thinking about, hiring and firing was, I think Tim Ferriss said, hire slow, fire fast. Does that resonate with you?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. So anybody that's, let's say, in a forming a team or has a team and a partnership that doesn't feel like it's not working or doesn't feel like it's working, are there any indications that you would recommend somebody be on the lookout for? Any advice that you'd offer to someone who isn't sure they're comfortable with the people they're working with now?
Well, again, it's going to sound simple from sitting here, right? Even though it's never simple, not from here, not from there. I mean, we all struggle with the same challenges, and the truth of the matter, yes, there's a pretty good formula that is pretty unbreakable. And to your point, if you hire fast, you also get quitters fast. Okay, you hire fast, quitters fast, meaning churn fast, and you also end up firing fast too. So hiring right required to be loyal to your formulas a little bit. And in my book, experience is important, but it's not the first. It's not the top. I don't care if you are, a full stack engineer with 35 years of experience and you work from Google. I care about your motives and your drivers and your day-to-day whys, right? So if we interview and if we meet with you and we see that you have this drive to win and to make something yours and to be part of an organization that has an amazing future, and you want to take part of this growth, then that's the primary aspect of the interview that we solve for. When we watch, look, and listen, and listen to what people say and what really people don't say. And it's really important to listen to what people don't say, actually, their intention, right? So the goal, the driver, right? Then I'd say second point is experience, but I would discount it by number one. Number one has to be 100%. The second component is, I'd say, 80, 70%, 70 to 80%. And the reason being is that if there's zero experience, or if there's a 10% experience, you're probably going to have a longer and a little bit more frustrating experience to go through the journey, because you're going to go through not only the growing pain, but repetition of doing the same because it didn't resonate, it didn't register, or it was new to the staff member, whatever it is, whether it's sales, whether it's engineering. You're trying to train on a pitch. It's like trying to pitch to train on objections and overcome objections and so on, or negotiation. So experience is I'd say the second, but then obviously it's trailing with several different other items. But again, I don't want to hug the time just with this question. So.
Oh yeah. No, I think it's interesting because as much as people are listening for shared experiences regarding parenting, also business too. So much can be informing to people that are going through the same process that you've already been through. So I'll ask another question right on this point. When you're hiring somebody or staffing, have you found, well, first maybe this is a bad question, but do you have any fun interview questions that you always ask? Like Microsoft will say, "Are you a rock star?" And then that solicits some sort of unusual response. Do you have anything kind of like that?
I do. I don't have it behind me now, but actually I have a white wall, right? So let's pretend this is a whiteboard. And my thing would be, take this as a whiteboard, and here's your pen, and start writing down the definition of a perfect position for you. Go. And people would look and say, what does that mean? I mean, just draw out, if the world was perfect and life was perfect and everything around you that surrounds yourself is perfect, then you should have the perfect job. Write down the definition of your perfect job. You want to work from the office, you want to work remote, you want to work 2 hours a day, you want to work 10 hours a day, you want to get paid this, you want to get paid that. You want your boss to be XYZ, and so on and so forth.
Do you have any super memorable experiences going through that exercise?
Honestly, no.
Yeah.
No. And I'll elaborate on this because for the most part, you get the predictable reactions. They're very predictable. They're very few and far between new, reactions to a certain quiz. But through that predictability, I'm essentially ready to read what I don't hear, to see the body language, to understand how you deal with something that's new to you, unfamiliar. I'm not clear. I mean, are you going to ask a question? You're not going to ask a question. So no, I mean, it's pretty predictable response for the most part.
What a fun kind of litmus test to include in your hiring. Is there a particular character trait or a demeanor that you find is consistent throughout all of your hires?
Well, everyone is prejudiced to an extent, right? I mean, we hire the people that, for the most part, again, we believe complement us or we can mirror or can mirror us. So I guess the short answer is people that mirror me. I mean, again, subjectively speaking, and demonstrate certain level of leadership or drive or assertiveness. These are the guys or the ladies that I kind of like gravitate towards. But it's really important, also what the job description is. If you're looking for someone in the finance and accounting, you probably don't want someone that mirrors you as an entrepreneur. You want someone that's more like, has a very clear, well-defined framework of what the day should look like from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock, and this is the task, and this is the process.
Yeah, I always, whatever it is in my business, I'm looking for somebody that's smarter than me at that. They should teach me. I shouldn't be training them. And that's been one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. So you've got 3 kids. What are their ages?
It's another funny story. 16, 14, and 5. She's going to say 5.5, but it's 16 boy, 14 boy, and 5.5 girl. And yes, if you're my planning attorney, I'd say same wife. So one family, one relationship, till death do us part. I'm a loyalist.
Oh, that's wonderful. So 10 years ago when you started Set Schedule, you already had 2 young kids. I guess they were 4 and 6 or so, which to me was really when all the fun started as a dad. Like mine are 8 and 9 now, and they're just a friggin' blast. But like trying to start a new company and be a dad, it's like you just added another baby into the mix in my experience. Like, can you talk about that transition? What were you doing leading up to Set Schedule and starting that, and how did that transition impact your family unit?
So it's a very good question. And by the way, boys, girls, what do you have?
I have a 9-year-old girl and an 8-year-old boy.
Oh, God, you boom, boom, and you got it right. I mean,
12 months apart.
Nice. Yeah, no, I did a boy, and a girl, and I call them the bodyguards. But you're right. When we started SetSchedule.com, the bodyguards were 4 and 6, and I would frequent travel with them to my partner in LA, and they'd play the PlayStation with him, and it's kind of crazy to think that my old guy is now starting to think about college applications and SATs and so on. So yeah, I mean, again, what was leading to Set Schedule is a lot of different entrepreneurial experiences. I ran different real estate investment fund, and we had over 100 properties that we've traded in Texas and California. And actually, that was the kind of prerequisite of Set Schedule. When we realized we buy so many properties, and we engage with real estate agents, and mortgage lenders, and financiers, and loan officers so much, and that's where I got familiar with the lifestyle of a real estate broker and brokerage in general, and that's kind of like what led to Set Schedule. And for many reasons, we had to liquidate the funds. We had to close that business and move on and sell it, and that's kind of like what transpired. And when I got together with my co-founders, which has been a friend of mine for years, way before we became partners, I like you said, he had no kids, and he was a single dude, and I was married for 10 years at that point plus, with 2 kids. And I guess one thing to your question is how that affected or how that influenced. They said all the time, and you heard your parents say that, when you get to the point where you have family and kids, you become a bit more conservative, a bit more concerned about the downside risk, especially coming out from bad partnerships or failing relationships with failing teams. When you build a successful, billions of dollars worth of products and businesses, you ask yourself, what's my next evolution? And that's kind of like, by the way, where I developed I don't want to call it epiphany, but my hypothesis and my setting guideline of partnerships, complementary, not competitive, because I actually just exited a very solid, very toxic relationship. So my biggest concern was, okay, if I'm getting into this business, the downside risk will hurt my kids. I'm not going to be able to pay for their college. That's how my brain functions. I'm not going to be able to pay for their good education, and I'm getting closer and closer to my end goal, which, or not my end goal, but one of my benchmark goals, which is to pay for college. And that was kind of the leading thought process when we established the company and started to go, move forward with new initiatives and new company.
Does your wife, is she a full-time parent with the kids? Does she pursue work or a career?
So yes, yes and yes. So she, for a certain amount of time, she was a full-time parent or stay-at-home mom, and she enjoyed that. But through the transition, we all rolled up a sleeve and we said, hey, we need to build more businesses. We need to grow. We have much, bigger dreams on a personal level, right? So she actually was one of the founding legs of Schedule. She wanted the licensing. She was actually the first one to get all of the regulatory aspects done in terms of brokerage licenses, and and then after several different years, she took over human resources, and then she was able to exit and do other things. But she's what makes her a great partner is that she's complementary, and she rolls up the sleeve when the tough gets going, right? Or the going gets tough. So, that's something that you need in partnership. And again, it's on the personal level, on the corporate level, if you have those kind of partners, then you are very blessed, as my partner would say.
Yeah, very true. You kind of answered the question I was going to ask about the importance of having spousal, support from your spouse while you're taking on this whole new thing, because it changes your schedule, it changes your cash flow, it changes the way you interact with her or your kids. Do you have any experiences that were, say, difficult throughout that time that would be worth sharing to someone who might be thinking about starting something new or going through something new and not really knowing how to manage their time or relationships like that?
So what do you mean by that? I mean, on a personal level, corporate level, how do you approach that?
I guess up for interpretation, but my experience, I in February opened a martial arts school, jiu-jitsu school with two friends, and then I have my other business that requires my time and other things that require my time, and so it was at the expense of late evenings and early mornings to fit these things in, and my life was completely counterbalanced on the work side. I was spending almost no time at home for 8 weeks, and that was really hard. And if I could do it over again, I would tell somebody, like, communicate more, prioritize at a higher level. And just wondering if you had anything like that where you went, okay, you and your wife said every Tuesday at 4 we got to have this check-in, or anything like that to help that process be smoother.
100%. I mean, I don't know if my wife would agree on the first part of the answer, but I'll answer it in a second. But as a background, we all do the same thing. We all go through the same journey, and I've done exactly the same thing that you just described. So I went through the same thing. It's like business, and so on. And I think the biggest addiction that drives us in some scenarios down, outside of our mindset, which is always the number one, the number two is this guy, right?
Yeah.
I call it digital pollution. So knowing that, okay, and knowing that everybody has to sit 24 hours, whether you're Bill Gates, Elon Musk, or us, right? You have 24 hours. You have to realize that you don't need to go through a major slump in life, or, God forbid, a horrible disease, to appreciate the fact that you have limited amount of time, and you will regret not doing, right? So if you're going to regret not doing more with your kids, then you need to address it. If you regret not doing more events, and not seeing more, and not being more for your kids, or being more out with your wife, then you need to do something about it. And I actually, unfortunately, I actually started to reflect on this when the going got tough, right? It's always like, why am I spending 90% of my waking hours doing X, and how do I fix that, right? So I made a couple of adjustments. Number one is I define time where this goes on the not disturb, and I made it. So when this goes on not disturb, emails are not important anymore. Up to that point, you have to clear it out. You have to respond. You have to be on top of it. You have to be responsible. You have to run what you need to run. You need to be attentive to anybody. You need to be attentive. You cleared it. You zeroed it out. But then when you find it, do not disturb it. It's whenever you want to, prefer to do it, right? You cut it off. The second thing is, yes, I mean, you find, for example, the weekends, right? Saturday, Sunday. Okay, those are the days. Those are the days with family. Then it doesn't matter. Hell, high water. No business is going to change its DNA between Saturday and Sunday if you take the days now, right? And obviously during the week, again, it's a function of, let's say if your wife works, she's only available in the evening, or if your wife is a nurse, she works at night and she's available in the morning, that you can define, okay, no matter what, Mondays and Wednesdays you have breakfast from 7 to 9, and then you head out to work. So that's pretty rudimentary.
I got you. Just having that discipline, and you brought up mindset. I'm sure, like everybody else, your mind has been in a bad place and been in a good place. What are some of the tools or practices that you maintain to have the mindset that you want, whether it's positive or inspirational, or what do you do to keep your mind right?
And that's a very good question, and it's true because we all go through the good, we all go through the bad. Well, first off, I'd say what not to do. You will never benefit from going to the easy outs. And it's going to sound bad, but I guess I'm going to get super philosophical on this. Drugs, drinks, whatever else in between, those are not going to really fix the problem. They're a very shitty band-aid, excuse my language. Mm-hmm. And so you don't do that. What you need to do is you need to clear your mind, and you need to do a couple of things. Mind exercise is really good. So listening to audiobooks and listening to experts that talk about subject matter, it's not a weak thing to do. It is a good thing. So training your mind like the same way you do if you go to the gym, you should do that. Second thing is more of like intentional thinking. Stop caring about the stuff that doesn't really change your life. You think everything does, but it's not true. And that's actually I learned from my partner. I learned it from my wife, which is amazing when it comes to that. And again, it's like it's this doesn't matter. It's not going to change your life. You're excited about it now. You have a problem now at work. You have a problem now with your boss. At the end of the day, your boss, as long as you perform, your boss, no matter what the vocal drivers are, it's not going to change your life. You're going to come back to this job, and you know what? If it's not this job, it's going to be another job, right? Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, try to find those items that you can say, you know what? I'm going to turn off the caring button. And if you intentionally stop caring about it, you'll find that all of a sudden it affects you differently, or it doesn't affect you at all. That's how it handles it there.
So we can all kind of work on our own thing. It's one thing to like do us, but like, how do you convey cultivating that kind of mindset to kids? Is there anything that you do with your kids, or say to your kids, or practice with your kids, or involve them in something that you feel like really keeps that clarity?
Yes, 100%. 100%. I mean, look, you know it just as well as I do, right? I mean, having kids and having a family, it's like having a personal entity, right? That you have to groom, you have to grow, you have to educate, you have to train, you have to have webinars.
Right.
Kids, right? I take the entrepreneurial approach with my kids, and my boys are obviously 6 and 14, and my wife does the same, by the way, so we're very much in sync on that game plan. We first off, everything that we do, we start with love, freedom, and support. Love, freedom, and support. In many instances, and it's a funny joke, a lot of my kids' friends don't understand how they can sit with their dad and drop the F-bomb, and their dad is not going to go ballistic. It's not a thing for me. I mean, if that's something you want to use, as long as you don't hurt anybody, and as long as you don't, make anybody cry, then what difference does it make, right? So that's just an easy example. They drop the F-bombs and they talk to us like friends. I don't have a problem. They don't need to call me sir and Mrs. and for the mom. And when it's okay. I give them the love, support, and freedom. And it's really important to let your kids make mistakes. And I learned it. And it's hard. It's one of the hardest things to do. That's part of the freedom. You have to give them the freedom to make mistakes. So we not only give them the love and support to be who they are and drop F-bombs if they want, we also let them we give them the freedom to make mistakes, because that's what life is all about. And we support them when they come back and explain the problems and the mistakes that they've made. So again, that's essentially what it is: life, freedom, and support, and that's really how we build character with our kids.
I find that in my parenting experience, looking at my dad, I'm either doing what he did or doing the opposite of what he did. Was your childhood like that? Do you find yourself like the way you were raised? Is so different, growing up in Israel, going to the military versus growing up in California. Like, can you speak to that a little bit? Like
Sure.
The contrast between your life and theirs?
So the contrast between, and it's a great question. And you position it perfectly, right? I mean, the difference between growing up in Israel and the northern part of Israel, north of Haifa, right, and my kids that grew up in LA really at the beginning, but most of their lives in Orange County, which is notorious for being clean, well-to-do, upper middle class, plus, right? Their life, first off, is different because I don't think they saw the same journey of financial stress and that I've seen. Right. I mean, it's not all perfect, and we went through a lot of process of building, and we went through a lot of process of losing. But ultimately, my parents, and I grew up in a 40-year-old country, give or take, and I grew up in the northern part of it, which is less populated than like Tel Aviv or the center. So it was really a much less developed childhood than theirs. But I do mirror some parts of my dad, kind of like exactly how he put it perfectly, right? I mean, I think that my dad gave me the freedom, gave me the love and support, but even though he had a hard stop on Saturdays, that's the only day that he had off in Israel, so it was like basically 6 work days a week. So I only had him from Saturday. I do think that I do a better job in separating my day and organizing my nights where I spend more time with my kids. I take them a whole lot more to dinners. I take them a whole lot more out to movies. But that's a function of affordability also. So I do more with my kids than my dad did with me. My mom was a good mom, but I've learned maybe the sales drive from her, but for the most part, it was I mirror my dad in terms of a parent.
With respect to the context within which your kids are growing up versus the context that you grew up, what do you think is one of the disadvantages your kids have versus an advantage you would have had?
Money and strong and good community. Money and good, strong communities. That's my personal challenge because, and it's true, and challenge builds character, and our biggest risk, and I'm not insinuating that my kids are not amazing and they're not strong and they're not strong-minded, they are, but the biggest challenge I have as a parent is what ifs, right? If my son now is at a point where he's talking about cars, he's talking about cars that I didn't even know how to fathom the thought of maybe possibly buy as an adult when I was his age, right? We walked out to a dealership to look at cars, and a dealership is, I'm not going to spell out what kind of dealership, whatever, just assume whatever you want, I'll say it's a German car maker, right? And we're sitting there, and the dealer says, or the salesperson says, when I came from Iran, when I was in Iran, or when we immigrated from Iran, my parents bought me a 15-year-old Suzuki, right? and he was like, and I was 15 years old. Like the car was my age, and it was kind of funny how he said that. So the risk is that if you incubate too much, you're going to have the same environment of a zoo. You have a problem with zoo, like you can't send the animals to the wild, and that's something we talk about a lot.
Yeah, I've always said that recently started saying that my job is in direct conflict with my wife's job. My wife wants to coddle and nurture and take care of because she has to when they're born. And then at some point, somebody's got to send them out and prepare them for the world. What are some of the characteristics that you've tried to cultivate in your kids as you prepare to let the arrow loose and send them out into the world to, be independent contributors to, humanity?
Well, I'm sorry, I don't want to sound repetitive, but this is a very good question, and I like the phrasing of it. It's like because it's true. We have this conversation. At the end of the day, we want to believe that our kids are going to be good people. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, they're going to be good people. And it's funny because every one of them is different, right? And then they all come from the same house, but every one of them is different. Some have more empathy, some of them have less empathy, some have more like sense of security, safety, and defense, and some have less. So it's kind of interesting, but I think that ultimately, going back to the love, freedom, and support, we're very much, it's going to sound a funny line, and maybe you want to use it, right? We're like a low security jail, right? It's like open, look do your thing. We're not a high security, we're like low, So the theory is we tell them we want you to be good people, but we focus on showing them examples of bad, and we focus on showing examples of bad people. We talk about that. Again, it's going to sound bad, but personally, one of my biggest interests in like entertainment is like I like entrepreneurship, and I watch documentaries. I watch a lot of documentaries. When I see serial murders on documentaries, I'm asking myself, what kind of conversation did the mom of Ted Bundy have with Ted Bundy, right? Yeah. And honestly, I obsess over that because I'm thinking, nobody knows what happened. Nobody knows, so don't tell me, my kids will never do this. I love my kids. I let my kids watch those documentaries. I talk to them about that. It's like I said, a low security jail. Watch any TV shows you want. Let's talk about it, And that's kind of like the philosophy, and that's how we drive the narrative of be good people. Because here are some scenarios where this is how life works. This is how people work. This is what can happen when you walk around different maybe downtowns and around the country that you're not familiar with, right? This is not South Orange County or your incubated environment. So that's what we do.
And it's kind of maximum exposure, minimum risk. Just if you have kids you can have conversations with. So you've got 14 to 15-year-old and you've got 5.5-year-old. That half is important. So how is your role different for the 5.5-year-old than it is for the older kids? And I don't want to distinguish boy and girl, just the age level. Like, what's your role as a dad between teenager and 5-year-old?
So it's a tough question because I'm a playbook sucker with a 5.5-year-old, right? I'm a playbook sucker. A, she's 5.5, and B, she is a she, right? She's the princess, right? She's the girl. Yeah. And yes, I know that you didn't want to say it.
I knew you would anyway. I would do the same thing.
So, and you know what? I put myself in check because I'm way more protective. I'm way more giving in terms of like, what do you want? Sure. I mean, it's not like, no, what do you want? It's, what do you want? Sure. It's a different narrative. With the boys, every conversation starts with, no, what do you want? Daddy, I love you. Great, what do you want? Right?
Yeah.
Or it's not daddy, I love you. It's dad, I love you. And the 5.5-year-old is daddy, I love you. It's like, sure, what do you want? So I put myself in check because it's not healthy long term. Mm-hmm. So I take a little bit more of the defensive approach and the protective, and I spend a whole lot more time. And I think that because, or thanks to my 5.5-year-old, I actually augmented my schedule and my digital lifestyle exponentially. I set very clear boundaries where you're not going to find me on, like, for example, on emails or text messages when we're sitting at dinner. It just in the past they would see me like, the biggest pet peeve is where I see people in the saunas and at the steam rooms with their phones. It's just, I have a hard stop, and that's kind of like that I attribute that to being a dad of a 5.5-year-old now.
Yeah, so you feel like you've improved and become more deliberate and intentional as a parent over the years with multiple kids and different experiences. You've just evolved to be better naturally.
Yep.
All right, I know we're getting close to time, so I'm gonna hit you with a couple of kind of rapid fire short answer questions.
Which, by the way, that's going back to interviews and selection of individuals and teams. that is actually my favorite approach to interviews. It's a rapid fire. Just yes, no, just don't even think about it. So
some of these are going to be little brain teasers. So I'm not gonna hit you right in the sweet spot just yet. But let's start. So when it comes to the characteristics of a father, what are 2 or 3 characteristics that somebody needs to be a super dad? Just every dad needs these characteristics.
Open-minded, attentive, forgiving, loving.
Awesome. What is a skill that you've really enjoyed teaching your kids?
Entrepreneurship. And by entrepreneurship, I mean just, again, it's the world is yours, make it. You will never catch me. You will never ever find my wife or myself catch me here or you'll never catch me saying to my kids, you cannot do this. That's the worst thing, and I just resent it with passion. Do whatever you would like to do it.
Love that. Is there a fictional father that you've always thought was great, like a favorite TV dad or book dad, movie dad?
Honestly, no. Never thought about it.
Yeah. And nothing pops into your head right now?
Not good ones. No.
Bill Cosby is, I think, the only
Oh,
one
did you
that
know?
pops.
That's exactly what popped in mind.
Oh, this is my first rodeo, Roy. I had that feeling.
That's a good one.
All right, so let's suspend time, money, and space. So as creative as you want to be, if you could give a gift to every father on the planet, what is a gift that you would share or give?
Oh, it's going to sound super corny, but the best gift is good children. Children that love you and adore you, and they want to be the best version of themselves, but they know the values of family and their parents. And that's what I have in my kids, and that's what makes life easier.
Awesome. And when in your life do you feel the most love?
When it's difficult.
Yeah?
When it's difficult. When I thought that I broke my ankle, and thank God after multiple x-rays in 2 different hospitals, it didn't sound like it. I saw my wife didn't sleep for 2 days. I saw my kids when I asked them yesterday to come to the urgent care with me, and they were dropped off, and they stayed with me for 4 hours. And when it's difficult, you see the love.
It feels the most unconditional in those times, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right, so I've got one more question, but first I'm going to plug this gal, and then I'm going to ask you to share where people can find you. The art behind me was lent to me by Carrie Molina. If anybody's watching, I've got her website up here. It's carriemolina.com. It's available for sale. I try to highlight local artists' stuff and expose it to the world. And then, Roy, where could people find you? Instagram, LinkedIn, websites?
Well, they can just Google me. I'm very notable on Google. They can find my Twitter handle. They can find my LinkedIn, roydekel.com. I'm all over the web.
Awesome. So my last question to you is, in the event that this recording could last forever and reach multiple generations of your family, is there a message that you would share with your kids, their kids, their kids, their kids, that you would love for them to hear from their great, great, great uncle, grandfather, Roy?
Yes. And I'm actually going to steal it also from my co-founder, Udi Dorner. Nothing lasts forever. Everything is a cycle. Business is a cycle. A product is a cycle. A glass of wine goes bad. It's a cycle. So keep building, keep doing. You'll have your ups and downs. And when you're down, it feels tougher. It feels more challenging, but it can go up if you push it, if you work it, if you are aggressive with your drive and your interest to succeed and to solve problems. But remember this, it is always easier to do it with your loved ones and your friends. So if you have a circle and a community, a ring of people that love you and support you, you'll be just fine. So don't forget about them. Don't break that ring. Don't ignore them. And keep driving forward in life to do the best and be the best version of yourself.
One of my favorite answers ever. Thank you so much, Roy. That was awesome.
Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate that.